Is it just me, or is PvE starting to become much more desirable than PvP nowadays? I don't know about anyone else, but if a game has some kind of PvE option that allows you to progress through the ranks and unlock stuff normally like you would in PvP, I would be much more eager to jump into that. If I had to take a guess as to why I've been actively wanting PvE content nowadays, I would say it's because of the responsibilities of being an adult. Back then, I didn't have as much on my plate in comparison. All I really had was school, homework, and studying. Nowadays, though, I still have school, homework, and studying through being in college, but I also need to go to work, pay bills, manage my finances, continue wondering where my place in this world is exactly. Needless to say, I have a lot more on my plate now. Therefore, I don't have as much energy to put up with such annoyances today. Sure, I could try my hand at PvP for the day, but do I really want to take the chance of potentially getting multiple lobbies during my play session, therefore making my day a little worse? If I could have a better idea as to what I should expect in a PvE environment where I could potentially even set up the rules myself depending on what kind of mood I'm in, that sounds leagues better to me. That all being said, PvE modes that allow you to progress as if you were playing PvP aren't as common. PvE modes in the multiplayer part of games do exist, but more often than not, everything is already unlocked and it has no relation to your PvP progression. A good way to try out new things added to the game or to familiarize yourself with mechanics, maps, weapons, etc., sure, but nothing that allows you to progress. I'm not saying that PvE mode should replace PvP entirely, but rather it should be a complementary mode, another equal option instead of a lesser one. Why is that, you may be asking? Well, I'm glad you asked, as in today's video, I will be presenting my case as to why PvE modes in multiplayer need more recognition. We've all been there before, booting up a new game with a mix of excitement and worry. Excitement that it's a new game that has the potential to be one that you pour hundreds of hours into depending on how good it is, but also worry because you may go up against people who are more familiar with the game and have more things unlocked as you're still learning the ropes. This is where a PvE mode could be really helpful, not only allowing new players to get a feel for the game in a more calm environment, but also allowing them to unlock new things to get their journey started. Games have sort of done this with bots before. Black Ops 2, for example, had the Combat Training playlist, a mix of modes tailored to new players to allow them to learn the basics in a more calm environment before diving into regular public matches. Imagine that, but the PvE modes are available all the time with full XP no matter what. This way, players can truly go at their own pace and dive into the PvP parts of a game only when they're truly ready. No getting locked out of it forever when you hit a certain rank. Have you ever had a moment where you're craving a particular game's multiplayer, but the lobbies that you get thrown into for your play session are at best mid and at worst infuriating? Feels pretty rough to want to play a particular game only for that play session to leave you frustrated and agitated, right? With a PvE mode, you'd be able to fulfill that craving while also ensuring that the chance of you ending that play session on a positive note is much higher. Maybe there's an off-meta loadout that you want to take for a spin, maybe there's a particularly difficult challenge you're looking to complete, or maybe you're just not in the mood to deal with interacting with other human players at that moment. A PvE mode with full XP would help alleviate those worries. I wasn't planning on this being an individual reason why PvE modes need more recognition when originally typing the script for this video, but with the influx of cheaters in Modern Warfare 3 2023, with the game having been added to Xbox Game Pass not too long ago, I was reminded of just how bad the cheating/hacking epidemic has gotten. Not just in Call of Duty, although that franchise is the #1 example that comes to mind when I think of cheaters ruining the fun for everyone else, but for gaming as a whole. With the cheating situation having gotten so bad that online stores have been created by people advertising their cheats as the cutting edge that you need to win games. Yeah, fuck off. A PvE mode could be a way to escape that. There, you would be able to enjoy the multiplayer of a game without any other scumbag pieces of shit ruining the fun because they think that buying an aimbot hack and then instantly beaming anyone in their next Warzone game is going to make people proud. Side note, Genuinely, how pathetic and sad does one need to be in order for them to justify spending money on cheats in a video game because they can't be bothered to put in the time and effort to improve organically at it? It would be one thing if a cheat was bought just to be used in any offline modes, because there, at least no one is ruining the fun for anyone else. But unironically, using cheats against other players as a quick and dirty means of getting gratification? Genuinely, how sad and pathetic does one need to be? I can already hear someone typing up a comment about how always online DRM with no offline patch will render this point mute in most cases in this day and age. To that I say, okay, you're right, but shush, let me have my moment, okay? PvE modes can be used as a way of preserving multiplayer game modes to a certain extent, so long as the game doesn't have always online DRM, in which case when the servers get shut down, so too would the PvE mode. But in the best case scenario, with there being no always online DRM, these PvE modes could allow the multiplayer of the game to live on in some capacity. Of course, you may not be able to play with friends, and maybe parts or all of the progression would be removed as well. In that aspect, the mode wouldn't be able to serve as an alternative to PvP. That being said, in this case, the mode could act as a way to keep parts of the multiplayer experience intact. Taking a look at Black Ops 2 again, while the normal multiplayer is technically still alive as of this video, it is without question unplayable as a result of hackers. If you still want to satisfy a nostalgia rush of Black Ops 2 multiplayer though, the custom games with bots can help with that. Would this ever actually be the case in the quest that many AAA studios go on trying to get people to forget the greatness of the past so they can just buy the next supposedly best thing? Probably not, given how lots of companies have their heads so far up their own that they don't realize goodwill from the player base is a valuable currency in and of itself. But I still wanted to include this point for those few examples where this is and or could be the case moving forward. More games than ever nowadays are unfortunately manipulating your experiences in PvP. Call of Duty, Fortnite, Destiny 2, Apex Legends, and more games are rigging your experiences to be intentionally good or bad as their algorithms see fit with skill-based, or more accurately, engagement-optimized matchmaking. I recognize that this topic has been covered to death already, particularly when it comes to Call of Duty, but this can be applied to any game with skill-based / engagement-optimized matchmaking in its casual non-ranked playlists. But I still want to give a summary of my thoughts to give context as to why a PvE mode could provide an escape from all of this. To put it simply, skill-based / engagement-optimized matchmaking intentionally gives you highs and lows by putting you in easier or harder lobbies in order to forcefully give you wins and losses. Once you get a good game after 2 or 3 previously bad ones, the game is betting on you riding that high, riding that dopamine boost in order for you to keep playing longer and to buy more things in the store. Even if we remove the monetary aspect of the game taking advantage of how your brain works from this equation, skill-based / engagement-optimized matchmaking in its current implementation is not the answer that is needed for the protecting lower-skilled players argument. There should be beginner or training playlists so that new players can get acquainted with the game before diving into the regular playlist so that they're more prepared. In other words, there are smarter ways that this can be done. You don't need to have the entire game revolve around new players a la Modern Warfare 2019. You don't need to sacrifice part of a player base's enjoyment so that other parts of the player base can be gaslit into thinking they're better than they really are so they can justify things like microtransaction purchases. You can have the entire player base enjoying the game as is without any kind of manipulation that's veiled in secrecy, only to finally be officially acknowledged and talked about due to years of growing public outrage. Headaches can be prevented all around by not turning the PvP experience into a psychological numbers game. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like skill-based / engagement-optimized matchmaking is going away anytime soon. Cracks are starting to form with the release of X-Defiant and how that game doesn't have any skill-based / engagement-optimized matchmaking in its casual non-ranked playlists, but whether those cracks are large enough to cause the foundation of this manipulative system to entirely fall apart has yet to be seen. So a PvE option for the multiplayer would be a great way to get around that, where you can have a custom-made experience that you are in control of with no outside force or influence manipulating your experience. And if you are worried about getting stomped in any PvP lobbies. As I mentioned earlier in the video, a PvE version of the multiplayer could either help you train so you feel more prepared, or be an entire alternative means of play to avoid PvP altogether. For as much as I've been passionately slamming skill-based / engagement optimized matchmaking not only in this video, but just in general with an old video of mine and in my streams, twitch.tv/thunderous_fulf, I would be spending 99% of my time with the game in its PvE playlist equivalent if there was that option, regardless of whether there's any manipulative matchmaking in PvP or not. I just really dislike something that should be organic being so rigged in order to produce projected outcomes in the name of maximizing profits and retention, regardless of whether or not I'm an active participant in what's being rigged. And there we have it, my case as to why PvE modes need more recognition. Whether said modes, especially in the form of ones that still allow you to progress as if you were in PvP, would ever be given this treatment of more recognition is unlikely. Of course, PvE modes with multiplayer mechanics do exist, but most of them have no relation to PvP, or if there is relation, then it's usually at reduced XP rates or with other forms of restrictions. There are only a couple of games that I can think of off the top of my head that offer unrestricted means of PvE multiplayer progression. Battlefront 2 2017, minus the Starfighters, and For Honor are two that I can think of off the top of my head that I've played, but beyond that, I would need to sit down and think. Again, this video isn't meant to be a case as to why PvE needs to be the new main method of multiplayer or anything like that. It would be crazy to argue that PvP should be shoved to the side. Rather, I feel like PvE modes should be on the same level as PvP modes, an equivalent alternative means of play, not a lesser mode like it's seen today. I'm also curious to know what you all think. Do you think more resources should be put into PvE modes moving forward? Let me know in the comments below.